Well, hello, Mr. President. Thank you for being here. My name is Francisco Navarrete. My parents are from Zamora and Morelia, Michoacán. And my question is, in his book, Nuestra Hora, Los Latinoamericanos en el siglo XXI, Raúl Rivera says that for greater Latin American growth, Mexico has to stop focusing so much on its relationship with the U.S. and more with other Latin American countries. I was wondering how you felt about that. And my second question is just how feasible do you think a Latin American Union similar to the European Union is in the near future? Thank you.
We can take another, no? That was and what? No? Oh. I got 2 or 3 and I can...
Presidente Calderón, muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Perdón, me llamo Juan Gerardo Favela, soy de un rancho que se llama La Rosita, en Coahuila. Y pues, o sea, mi pregunta es, ¿qué hizo su gobierno para ayudar a la gente más pobre en México, como del rancho de donde soy yo, en términos de educación? Porque creo que hay gente muy capaz e inteligente en los ranchos y creo que la ayuda del gobierno a veces, bueno, nos sentimos olvidados en pueblos como de donde yo vengo y quiero saber qué fue lo que hizo su gobierno.
I could translate. So his question is regarding how to address the people that live in very small towns and rural areas of Mexico, and what the government has done in terms of what his administration personally did to help these small towns and help the young people who are very capable and very willing to work.
Probably one more. I lost the
Hola,
female vote.
Hola, presidente. Me llamo José Magaña y yo soy de Guadalajara, Jalisco, en México. Usted habló brevemente sobre la educación y que construyeron muchas escuelas y universidades allá. Y habló mucho sobre los campesinos que dejan sus familias para venir a trabajar aquí, pero yo quisiera hacer una pregunta sobre los niños o adolescentes que no están haciendo esa decisión, pero que sus papás los están trayendo no por tanta razón económica, sino por falta de oportunidades para la educación. Y quisiera saber cómo sus iniciativas cambiaron el sistema para asegurarse que no nomás haya más escuelas, pero que la gente tenga acceso a esas escuelas también.
So his question is regarding the fact that people are migrating migrating to the U.S. and what his administration did to change the incentives not only to create these schools, but to get people to go to these schools, because many parents bring their kids to the U.S. believing that they have with the belief of a better education and greater opportunities. So what were the main incentives to ensure that these children were going to the new universities, the new high schools?
I lost the first one from Zamora.
Yeah.
What is
Well, my question was, should Mexico, for Latin American growth?
The point is, it's clearly it's the nature of geography. That we are very close to the United States. You know very well that expression coming from the past, no? Poor Mexico. So far from God, so close to the United States. Let me tell you that when I was studying here, I had a tremendous discussion with some of my fellows coming from other countries, mainly from Asia, talking about all the problems we have being neighbors of the United States. We lost half of our territory. But at the end of the conversation, some of them told me, well, how many kilometers you have with the United States in the border? He told me, I said 3,000 kilometers. He told me, well, we will pay for 300 meters for the United States. He was right, because in economic terms, it has been clearly an advantage for Mexico. And we are not having trade with the United States because we do prefer the Americans to be the Americans. We do prefer because it's comfortable, easier to export in the United States and to sell or merchandise here, and it's more profitable because it has more income than any other nation around. Nevertheless, we are proudly Latin American. Actually, Mexico has this tremendous advantage, which is being geographically part of North America. By the way, some Americans forget Mexico is part of North America. With geography. Well, we are part of North America, but at the same time we are proudly Latin America. What we are doing in that sense, first in political arena, we organize in Cancun, by first time ever, the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. And I say the first time ever in 200 years of independent life of our countries. It's the first time we have a common organization integrated by all Latin American countries and the Caribbean countries. For instance, we have the OEA, but OEA doesn't integrate Cuba still today, and it doesn't integrate a lot of countries. We have other organizations more related with Latin America, but we never integrated the Caribbean countries, English speaking. Today we are integrating the whole Latin American and Caribbean countries, and that was an initiative made by Mexico exactly at that point to bring together the brother countries, if I can say that. Now, in the economic side, what we are trying to do, I really believe in trade, the power of trade, because trade and openness provide opportunities for people, for consumers and producers and workers. And in that sense, we organize the Pacific Alliance, Alianza del Pacífico, with Chile, Peru, and Colombia, and today we are incorporating Panama and Costa Rica. And with that, we are making the most powerful economic alliance between Latin American countries. Actually, the most famous group until this step we made was the Mercosur. Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay. However, Mercosur has not been able to trade fairly since 10 years ago. Always there are some discussions. All of them are very protectionist. The framework, the frame of several of those leaders are more protectionist. To see a negative balance of current balance is some kind of big mistake. It's a failure. That's not true. No, it's more complicated than that. But the point is, we are having now more trade and exporting more out of our region in the Alianza del Pacífico than all. And actually, we are looking for the integration of our stock markets in order to have one common stock market bigger than any other developing countries. And we are trying to establish a common place for free mobility of investment, goods and services, and people. And actually, I eliminated the requirement of visa for Peruvian and Colombian last year as a very important step in order to provide free mobility in those countries. Talking about basic education mainly, according to the decentralization process made in the year 91, 92 from the President Salinas, the basic education is in the hands, it's the responsibility of the governors and the local government in Mexico. The only thing we can do is provide a lot of money to the governors in order to then be able to provide the educational services at basic level or elementary level. Even in that order, we could track that, and we generated, with the support of the federal government, but the educational system, which is local, spaces for people at primary education, basically until 6th grade. Today, we can say that we reached universal education coverage at basic and primary level. what is the problem with some communities that could be the case of Rosita? I don't know, if Nueva Rosita.
No, es La Rosita,
Rosita
es un
River.
ranchito, sí, Nueva Rosita sí existe, pero no soy de ahí.
Nueva Rosita is
Sí, sí, es de la región carbonífera.
yeah. But the point is that there are several small communities in Mexico in which it's very difficult to provide public services. And that is one structural problem we have in order to tackle poverty. And what is that? Is the dispersion of the population. For some reasons, probably due the agrarian distribution, the agrarian reform, the government split the land for agricultural purposes during several years. I do believe that agrarian reforms are good in order to reduce the inequality in one country, but it's a one-shot action. So the Cuban agrarian reform took like 2 years, Chinese agrarian reform took like 10 years, but the Mexican agrarian reform took like 70 years. Why was that? In my opinion, because there was a lot of political manipulation of that. You were able to control the political expectations of a lot of people demanding a piece of land. And you can keep this permanent promising in order to keep control of it. And at the same time, you could have under control the people who was afraid to lose their land through expropriation. But the problem with this is the land started to be over-distributed, if I can say that, with several bad consequences. One of that is the lack of competitiveness in the agricultural sector in Mexico. For instance, here in the United States, there is like one worker in the agricultural sector per each 106 hectares or something like that. But in Mexico, there is one worker per each 2 hectares. And it is impossible, and it was impossible last century to provide opportunities for the people. And that explained a lot the immigration to the United States coming from rural areas. But that was point. And how can I connect with your question? Some of other problems are related with the allocation of those small communities. When I was candidate for governor of Michoacán, I was planning to visit any single community in the state. Well, I reduced my commitment in order to visit any single municipality in the state. Why? Because I realized that there was like 10,000 communities with less than 100 people. Why? Because the government gave them a piece of land in the middle of nowhere. They needed to go there and establish there a small community. Now, how could you provide health services, drinking water, electricity to them? It's very expensive. And actually we are doing so. We provided electricity, for instance. I'm sure that in Rosita there are electricity, probably drinking water. But to provide better services like education and health, it's absolutely different. So what we need to do is to allocate closer to the people the primary school and the high school. The policy we established was trying to reach those people. For instance, in the past, the new public universities that the government established, most of them were created in Mexico City. The UNAM, the UAM, several of them, Metropolitan University and so on. All of them in the big cities. These 140 new universities we made, most of them were in smaller areas, even rural areas, and far away from these big cities in the country. There was a very important article in the New York Times, for instance, talking about immigration like 2 years ago. And one example that the journalist used was 2 guys in the rural area in Jalisco coming from a traditional family of migrants. Grandfather, grandmother, the father, the brother, the uncles, almost all in the family immigrated to the US. However, they decided to stay there because they got the opportunity go to the school, and they went to high school, and there was a new technological university near to their region, and after studying in that university, they could be sure that they would be hired by electronic company in the metropolitan area of Guadalajara. That was the effort. So universal coverage for primary or basic education, and this effort in high schools and universities we made. Finally, the last was yours, related to?
Jose.
Yeah, Jose, what's
So
the question related
about
to?
the education system and making sure that the quality of the schools are improving and not just declining. How do the kids and teenagers stay there instead of having their parents migrate them?
I am yeah. Well, actually, it's a very difficult point. One of the problems we face is, actually my wife, Margarita, worked a lot on that. It's in so-called children, non-accompanied children migrating. We discovered that thousands of people, as you say, send the children to join their parents here. Probably what grandmother there is either incapable to attend the children, or probably they want to join the family here. So they send the children alone, sometimes with the pollero or the coyote. And when the law enforcement agencies stop them, they used to deliver them in the border just in that way. So we discovered that there were like children between 6 or 7 years old and 14 years old that were abandoned in the border, one day in Tijuana or Nogales or whatever. And of course, some of them, much of them suffered a lot. I do believe that the families, it's good for families, especially it's good for children. I mean, it's the most important thing we need to think about. Have the right to be together in a family. I don't see by any means the benefits to separate or split a children 10 years old from their parents. No one could win from that, neither in the United States or Mexico. So we need to find, and that could be one part of the immigration report, how to join the families again. The others with this problem of the migrant children not accompanied, we need to fix that problem. Let me tell you, some of the most problematic cities in the border with the United States are related with immigrants extradited or deported to the border. Because in some counties, the criteria is to deport the so-called problematic migrants. Somebody which is linked with some scandal or with some problem, maybe a band or a gang, whatever. Some authorities prefer to extradite or deport them instead to make a trial, which could be very expensive for the state. But there are some cities, like for instance Ciudad Juarez, that receive 60,000 deported a year. So you can imagine the problem that full sudden re-immigration provokes. Mostly because most of them are related with the bad behavior, if I can say that. That's another problem. But between those bad guys, there were these children. And I think that there must be some kind of international right to join your family, to be accompanied, or some kind of duty coming, duty to the authorities to avoid such kind of performance with the children that are traveling, if I can say.
Calderon, thank you very much.